I was scrolling through travel websites at 2 in the morning, planning what I thought would be the perfect surprise for Dad's 60th birthday. After months of research and saving every penny from my teaching salary, I had finally booked a $9,400 family trip to Japan for all six of us. Dad had always dreamed of seeing cherry blossoms and visiting ancient temples, and I wanted this milestone birthday to be unforgettable. 2 weeks before departure, my phone buzzed with a text from my brother Kevin that made my blood freeze. "We gave your spot to Ashley. She is more fun." Before I tell you how this family betrayal led to the most devastating revenge in our family's history, drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from and smash that like button if you have ever been the family member who always gives everything and gets nothing in return. Subscribe, because what I did next will prove that sometimes the quiet ones are the most dangerous when pushed too far. Let me paint the picture of our family dynamic so you understand exactly what led to this moment. I am the middle child in a family of 5 kids, and I have always been the responsible one. While my siblings were partying through college or jumping from job to job, I was getting my education degree and building a stable career as a high school English teacher. Mom and Dad raised us with the expectation that family comes first, and I took that lesson to heart more than anyone else. My older brother Kevin has always been the golden child, despite being 32 and still living in Mom and Dad's basement. He works sporadically in construction and spends most of his time playing video games and dating women half his age. His current girlfriend, Ashley, is 23, works part-time at a nail salon, and has been around for exactly 3 months. She has never met our extended family and knows nothing about Dad's interests or our family traditions. My younger sister, Emma, is 26 and married with 2 kids. She means well, but she and her husband struggle financially and rarely contribute to family expenses or gatherings. My youngest brother, Tyler, is 24 and recently graduated from college, still figuring out his career path. My baby sister, Sarah, is 22 and in her final year of university working part-time to pay for her expenses. For the past 5 years, I had been the one organizing all family gatherings, paying for Dad's birthday dinners, and coordinating holiday celebrations. When Mom needed help with medical bills last year, I contributed $800 without being asked. When Tyler's car broke down, I loaned him $2,000 that he has never paid back. When Emma's kids needed school supplies, I showed up with everything they needed and never mentioned the cost. Dad's 60th birthday felt like the perfect opportunity to do something truly special for the man who had worked 3 jobs to put all of us through school. He had mentioned multiple times over the years that Japan was his dream destination, inspired by his love of Japanese culture and history from his time serving in the military. I spent 4 months researching the perfect itinerary, finding family-friendly accommodations, and booking experiences that would create memories to last a lifetime. The trip I planned included 7 days in Tokyo and Kyoto, staying at traditional ryokans and modern hotels. I booked tickets for a bullet train experience, visits to famous temples, a traditional tea ceremony, and even arranged for us to see cherry blossoms at the perfect time of year. Every detail was planned with Dad's interests in mind, from the World War II history museums he would love to the sack tasting experiences that would let him explore his favorite beverage. The total cost was $9,400, which represented my entire savings account, plus a small loan I had taken against my retirement fund. I planned to tell the family about the trip at our monthly family dinner, presenting it as a surprise that we would all share. I had already booked 6 tickets, reserved hotel rooms, and paid for most of the experiences in advance to ensure everything would be perfect. When I announced the trip at dinner, The reaction was overwhelming. Dad actually cried when I showed him the itinerary, and Mom kept saying she could not believe I had planned something so thoughtful and generous. Kevin seemed genuinely impressed, which was rare, and the younger siblings were excited about their first international trip. Everyone promised to contribute to the remaining expenses and help with planning the smaller details. For 2 weeks, I exchanged excited messages with my siblings about the upcoming trip. Sarah researched Japanese phrases we should learn. Tyler looked up the best restaurants near our hotels, and Emma planned activities that would work for the whole family. Even Kevin seemed engaged, asking questions about the flight times and what to pack for different climates. Then Ashley entered the picture in a way that changed everything. Kevin had been dating her for 3 months, but none of us had spent significant time with her. She was beautiful in an Instagram influencer way, with perfectly styled blonde hair and a wardrobe that cost more than my monthly salary. She worked part-time, but somehow always had money for expensive clothes, weekly nail appointments, and frequent trips to high-end spas. The first sign of trouble came when Kevin called me 3 days before our departure date. His voice had that careful tone he used when he was about to ask for something unreasonable. "So, Sarah, I need to talk to you about the Japan trip," he said, and my stomach immediately dropped. "What about it? Is everything okay? Do you need help with anything for the packing?" "Well, Ashley is really upset that she is not invited. She says it is not fair that I get to go on this amazing trip without her, and honestly, she has a point. We have been together for 3 months now, which is serious for me." I felt the first flash of anger, but I kept my voice calm. "Kevin, this is a family trip for Dad's birthday. Ashley is lovely, but she barely knows Dad, and we planned this specifically for our immediate family. Come on, Sarah. You know how much this means to me. Ashley has never been to Asia, and she is really excited about the cultural experiences. Plus, she speaks some Japanese from watching anime, so she could actually be helpful. Kevin, I planned this trip specifically for our family. The hotel reservations are for 6 people, the activities are booked for our group size, and everything is already paid for. Adding another person would completely change the dynamic. What if Ashley paid her own way? She has some savings, and she really wants to contribute to making this special for Dad. I should have said no immediately, but I made the mistake of trying to be understanding. Kevin, even if she could pay her own way, the logistics are incredibly complicated. We leave in 3 days. The flights are full, the hotels are booked, and all of our activities are reserved for specific group sizes. Just think about it, okay? It would mean a lot to me, and I think Dad would enjoy having another young person around to keep things fun and energetic. When I hung up the phone, I felt uneasy, but assumed that Kevin would understand the practical impossibilities of adding someone to the trip at the last minute. I had spent months coordinating every detail, and changing anything now would be a logistical nightmare that could ruin the entire experience. 2 days later, I received a group text that included all my siblings. The message was from Kevin, and it was sent to everyone at the same time so that my response would be public to the whole family. Family meeting tonight at 7 p.m. at Mom and Dad's house. We need to discuss some changes to the Japan trip that will make it better for everyone. I arrived at my parents' house to find Ashley sitting in the living room like she belonged there, with her arm linked through Kevin's and a bright smile that did not reach her eyes. Mom and Dad looked uncomfortable, and my younger siblings seemed confused about why Ashley was present for a family discussion. Kevin stood up and addressed the room like he was chairing a board meeting. "So I have been thinking about the Japan trip, and I realized that we have an opportunity to make it even more special. Ashley has been researching Japanese culture and traditions, and she has some great ideas for activities that could enhance Dad's birthday experience. Ashley immediately jumped in with a prepared speech about temples she had looked up online and restaurants she had found on Instagram. She spoke with the confidence of someone who had spent months planning the trip, despite having learned about it just days earlier. Plus, Kevin continued, Ashley is young and energetic, and she could help keep the group motivated for all the walking and cultural activities. She could be like our cultural liaison since she understands Japanese pop culture so well. Dad looked increasingly uncomfortable as Ashley dominated the conversation, describing changes she wanted to make to the carefully planned itinerary I had spent months researching. She suggested replacing the traditional tea ceremony with a visit to a cat cafe, swapping the historical museum visits for shopping districts, and changing our accommodations to a more Instagram-friendly hotel she had found online. The thing is, Kevin said finally, getting to his point, we have a small problem with the logistics. The trip was planned for 6 people, but we want to bring Ashley along. Since Sarah is single and does not really need a vacation since teachers get summers off anyway, we thought maybe Ashley could take her spot. The room went completely silent. Mom and Dad looked shocked, and my younger siblings stared at Kevin like he had lost his mind. I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. Kevin, Dad said slowly, Sarah planned and paid for this entire trip. It was her idea, her research, her money. You cannot just give away her spot to someone else. Dad, think about it logically, Ashley chimed in with a voice that sounded practiced. Sarah can always visit Japan later when she has more vacation time and money saved up. But Kevin and I might not get another opportunity like this for years. Plus, I could document the whole trip on social media and create amazing memories for your birthday. Mom finally found her voice. This is absolutely ridiculous. Sarah has spent months planning this trip and thousands of dollars making it happen. Kevin, how can you even suggest something so unfair? But Kevin was not backing down. Look, I know it seems harsh, but Ashley brings energy and fun to everything she does. Sarah is great, but she can be pretty serious and uptight about schedules and plans. Ashley would help everyone relax and enjoy the experience more. Emma and Tyler started to protest, but Kevin cut them off. Plus, Ashley has vacation time available right now, and Sarah can take time off whenever she wants since she is a teacher. It just makes more practical sense. Ashley nodded enthusiastically. I promise I would make this the most fun trip ever. I have so many ideas for group photos and experiences that would make your 60th birthday unforgettable. I sat in stunned silence as my own family debated whether I deserved to go on the trip I had planned, researched, and paid for entirely by myself. The conversation continued for another 30 minutes, with Kevin and Ashley tag-teaming arguments about why the switch would be better for everyone involved. Finally, I stood up and walked out of the house without saying a word. I drove home in a daze, unable to process what had just happened. My own brother had just tried to steal my spot on a trip I had gifted to the family, and he had somehow convinced his girlfriend to help him argue that it was the reasonable thing to do. The next morning, I woke up to a text message that made me question everything I thought I knew about my family. It was from Kevin, sent to the entire family group chat, and the casual cruelty of it took my breath away. Hey everyone, great news. We gave Ashley Sarah's spot on the Japan trip. Ashley is way more fun and energetic, and she will help make Dad's birthday celebration really memorable. Sarah, you understand, right? You can always go to Japan another time when you are not so busy with work. I stared at my phone in disbelief. There was no apology, No acknowledgement of what he was asking, and no recognition that I had planned and paid for the entire trip. He had simply announced that my spot was being given away, like I was an inconvenience that could be easily replaced. The responses from my other siblings came quickly, and they were exactly what I should have expected. Emma wrote back, "That seems a little unfair to Sarah, but if everyone agrees, I guess it could work out." Tyler's response was even worse. "Ashley does seem really fun, and she knows a lot about Japanese culture. Maybe this could be good for the group dynamic." Only Sarah, my youngest sister, pushed back at all. "This does not seem right. Sarah planned this whole trip for Dad. Should not she be the one to decide if someone else can take her place?" But her objection was quickly overwhelmed by a flood of messages from Ashley, who had apparently been added to the family group chat without my knowledge. She sent a series of excited texts about how grateful she was for the opportunity and how hard she would work to make Dad's birthday special. She included links to Japanese restaurants she wanted to try and cultural sites she thought would be amazing for photos. I read through the entire conversation with growing rage and disbelief. My family was not even pretending to feel bad about what they were doing. Kevin was acting like he had made a reasonable executive decision, and everyone else was going along with it to avoid conflict. Ashley was planning my trip using my research and my money like she had every right to do so. That was when I made the decision that would change everything. I opened my laptop and began systematically canceling every single aspect of the trip I had spent months planning and thousands of dollars arranging. First, I canceled all 6 airline tickets, which were fortunately refundable since I had purchased travel insurance. Then, I canceled the hotel reservations in Tokyo and Kyoto, the ryokan bookings, and the traditional accommodations I had specially selected for their historical significance. I canceled the bullet train passes, the temple tour reservations, the tea ceremony appointments, and the cherry blossom viewing experiences. Every restaurant reservation, every cultural activity, every transportation arrangement, and every special experience I had planned disappeared with a few mouse clicks. The trip that had taken me 4 months to research and plan was completely dismantled in less than 2 hours. But canceling the trip was just the beginning of what I had in mind. While my family assumed they were still going to Japan in 2 days, I was putting together a much more comprehensive response to their betrayal. I started by calling my landlord, who also happened to be Mom and Dad's landlord. Our family had been renting the same duplex for over 15 years, with my parents in one half and Kevin living in their basement. The building was being sold to a development company, and the new owners had been offering existing tenants the option to buy their units at a discounted rate. "Hi, Mr. Patterson. This is Sarah. I am calling about the purchase option for the duplex. Yes, I would like to move forward with buying both units. Can we close as quickly as possible?" Within 3 days, I would own the building where my parents and Kevin lived. The sale had been in progress for months, but no one in my family had known that I was the buyer because I had used my middle name and a lawyer to handle the paperwork. The next call was to the credit card company that handled the family account my parents used for emergencies. As the primary account holder and the person who had been making most of the payments for the past 3 years, I had the authority to close the account immediately. Then I called their cell phone provider and canceled the family plan that I had been paying for since Kevin moved back home. I also canceled the internet service at their house, the cable package, and several other utilities that had been set up under my name to help my parents manage their expenses. By the time my family left for the airport, expecting to embark on the Japan trip that no longer existed, I had systematically removed myself from every aspect of their financial support system. They would discover the extent of the changes when they tried to use credit cards that had been canceled, phones that had been disconnected, and airline tickets that were no longer valid. But they would not discover the most significant change until they returned home and found that the locks on their house had been changed and that their rent had increased to market rate now that I owned the building, and they were no longer family receiving a favor. The Japan trip had been canceled completely, but the lesson I was about to teach them about taking family for granted would last much longer than any vacation. The first call came at 6:30 in the morning on what should have been their departure day. I was sipping coffee and grading papers when my phone rang with Kevin's number. "Sarah, what the hell did you do? We are at the airport and they are saying our tickets do not exist. The airline has no record of our reservations." I took a sip of my coffee before responding. "Oh, I canceled the trip. Since you gave my spot to Ashley, I figured you could plan your own vacation. Good luck. You cannot just cancel the whole trip. We have been planning this for weeks." Dad is devastated. "Actually, I planned this trip for months and paid for it with my own money. Since you decided I was not important enough to include, I decided you were not important enough to finance." The phone calls continued throughout the day as my family tried to salvage something from their ruined travel plans. Dad called crying about how disappointed he was that his birthday surprise had fallen apart. Mom called begging me to fix this and restore the trip reservations. Ashley called from Kevin's phone, screaming about how I had ruined her first international vacation. But the real meltdown began 3 days later, when they returned from their failed airport adventure and discovered the extent of the changes I had made to their living situation. Kevin called at 11 p.m., and his voice was pure panic. "Sarah, what did you do to the house? The locks are different, and there is a notice on the door saying the rent has increased to $3,000 a month. Mom and Dad cannot afford that." "Oh, that is because I bought the building. As the new landlord, I decided to bring the rent up to market value. The previous owner was giving you a significant family discount. But since we are no longer close family, I thought a business relationship would be more appropriate." "You bought the house. How is that even possible? You are a teacher." "I am a teacher who has been financially responsible her entire adult life, unlike some people I know. I have been saving money instead of spending it on video games and 23-year-old girlfriends." "Sarah, please, this is insane. You cannot just kick Mom and Dad out of their home." "I am not kicking them out. I am offering them the opportunity to rent the property at fair market value. If they cannot afford it, they are welcome to find alternative housing arrangements." The next morning brought even more chaos as my family discovered the full extent of the financial support I had been providing without their knowledge. Mom called when she tried to use the credit card at the grocery store, and it was declined. "Sarah, honey, something is wrong with our credit card. The bank says the account has been closed." "That is correct, Mom. I closed the account because I was the primary holder and I had been making the payments. Since the family decided I was not valuable enough to include in family activities, I decided I was not obligated to provide family financial support." "But Sarah, we need that card for emergencies and daily expenses." "Then I suggest you apply for your own credit card based on Dad's income and credit history. Most adults manage their own financial accounts." Dad called that afternoon when he tried to use his cell phone and discovered it had been disconnected. "Sarah, my phone is not working, and neither is your mother's. The company says our account has been canceled." "Yes, Dad. I canceled the family plan since I was paying for it. Everyone is welcome to set up their own individual phone plans now that we are operating as separate adults rather than a close family unit." Kevin's girlfriend Ashley made the mistake of calling me directly to complain about the unfair situation. Her voice was shrill with indignation as she explained how my actions were affecting her relationship. This is totally unreasonable. Kevin is stressed out and cannot focus on our relationship because you are being vindictive about not going on one trip. Ashley, I think you misunderstand the situation. This was not about one trip. This was about my family deciding that a stranger they had known for 3 months was more valuable than the daughter who had been supporting them for years. But Kevin says you make good money as a teacher, so you can afford to help them out. Kevin is wrong about a lot of things, but especially about my financial obligations to people who do not respect me. The week that followed was a masterclass in watching entitled People Confront Reality. Kevin had to move out of the basement and find his own apartment, which meant getting a real job since Ashley's part-time nail salon income was not enough to support 2 people. Ashley broke up with him within 2 weeks when she realized that dating him no longer came with the perks of family financial support and expensive vacations. Mom and Dad were forced to downsize to a smaller apartment they could actually afford on Dad's retirement income. The process forced them to confront how much they had been depending on my financial contributions without ever acknowledging or appreciating that support. Emma and Tyler both had to take on additional responsibilities for helping Mom and Dad, which made them realize how much work I had been doing behind the scenes for years. Tyler finally got a full-time job when he realized he might need to help with Mom and Dad's expenses, and Emma started budgeting more carefully when she understood that I would not be available to bail out anyone anymore. But the most significant change was in how the family viewed my contributions and my value. For the first time in decades, they were forced to function without my financial safety net, my organizational skills, and my willingness to sacrifice my own needs for theirs. 6 months after the failed Japan trip, Dad called to apologize and ask if we could rebuild our relationship. He had spent months thinking about what had happened, and he finally understood that the family had been taking advantage of my generosity and treating me like a resource rather than a person. Sarah, I realize now that we never appreciated how much you were doing for this family. You were holding us all together financially and emotionally, and we just expected that to continue forever without giving you the respect and consideration you deserved. Mom's apology came later, but it was more comprehensive. I am ashamed that I let Kevin convince me that giving away your spot on the trip was reasonable. You had planned something beautiful for Dad's birthday, and we destroyed it because we were too cowardly to tell Kevin that his request was inappropriate. Kevin's apology was the most reluctant and took the longest to come. When Ashley broke up with him and he was forced to live independently for the first time in his adult life, he began to understand how much support he had been receiving and how badly he had repaid that generosity. Sarah, I know I messed up badly. I let Ashley convince me that you would not mind giving up your spot, and I was too selfish to think about how much work and money you had put into planning the trip. I took advantage of your kindness because I knew you loved the family too much to cut us off completely. 1 year after the canceled Japan trip, we took a family vacation together to celebrate Dad's 61st birthday. This time, everyone contributed equally to the planning and expenses, and everyone's participation was voluntary rather than expected. Ashley was long gone, replaced by a woman Kevin had met at his new job who was impressed by his work ethic rather than his family connections. The most important lesson I learned was about the difference between being generous and being used. For years, I had confused my family's dependence on me with their love for me. I thought that providing financial support and organizing everything was my way of showing love, but I had actually been enabling them to take me for granted. Setting boundaries and demanding respect had not destroyed my family relationships. It had forced my family to build healthier, more balanced connections with me. They finally understood that love has to be mutual, that generosity should be appreciated, and that family members deserve the same consideration that would be given to friends or colleagues. The Japan trip eventually happened 2 years later, planned and paid for collaboratively by the entire family. Dad loved it even more because he knew that everyone was there, because they wanted to be, not because they were obligated or because someone else had made it possible through personal sacrifice. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for people is to stop enabling their worst behaviors and force them to grow into better versions of themselves. My family needed to learn how to function as independent adults who chose to support each other, rather than adults who expected one person to carry everyone else's responsibilities. They say that blood is thicker than water, but respect is thicker than blood. The strongest families are built on mutual appreciation and shared responsibility, not on one person's willingness to sacrifice everything for people who take that sacrifice for granted. Have you ever been the family member who gives everything and gets nothing in return? Tell me in the comments about a time when you had to set boundaries with people who were taking advantage of your generosity. Hit that like button if this story reminded you that you deserve to be valued by the people you love and support. Subscribe for more stories about standing up for yourself when family members cross lines they should never cross. Please share this video with anyone who needs to hear that their worth is not measured by how much they are willing to sacrifice for people who would not do the same for them. Remember that healthy relationships require mutual respect and appreciation, and sometimes the best way to teach people to value you is to show them what life looks like without your support. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it reminds you that you deserve to be treated with the same kindness and consideration that you show to others.